Nerds, coding, lack of sleep, stress, boring. Yet so many people want to study computer science. And if you are one of them, then this video is made for you. Today we'll be talking about the key important things that you need to know before you apply for computer science in NUS. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Hanbin. I'm a year 3 computer scientist here in NUS. And with me here today, I have Maguire.
Hi, I'm Maguire. I'm also a year 3 computer science student in NUS.
Currently, we are both in California, Silicon Valley for our NUS exchange. And we're part of this NUS Overseas Exchange program called NOC. Now, before we start this video, as you can see, there are timestamps at the bottom. Feel free to skip forward to the section that you think is helpful for you. So we will be firstly talking about computer science, then we will cover a little bit about the modular credit structure within NUS, and then subsequently we will talk about some basic modules that you will do as a computer science student, and thereafter we'll give you some tips and tricks of us year 3 computer scientists and some of the things that we wish that we did when we were entering NUS.
First, let's talk about computer science. According to Wikipedia, computer science involves the study of computation, automation, and information. The basic stereotype that a lot of people have about computer science is that it touches a lot of software, touches a lot of coding. So computer science is not limited to just the software. It also touches on hardware, which is building the product itself, and product manager, which is editing the product. And there are many other roles where you can explore with the computer science degree.
Next, just to give you guys an understanding of how a major works in NUS, you first have to understand the modular credit structure. So basically, for computer science program in NUS, you have to complete at least 160 MCs representing modular credits, and each module is actually 4 modular credits, and for each semester you are recommended to take 5 modules, which amounts to around 20 modular credits. So how majority of students in NUS manage their schedule and calculate how many modular credits they are finishing this semester is by using this website called nusmods.com. Oh, fun fact, NUS Mods was created by a previous CS student in NUS.
In the first 2 years of being a computer science student in NUS, you probably need to complete a set of modules that helps you to build up the foundation before actually take up some specializations, and they are called focus areas. So some key focus areas that you can look at would be algorithms and theory, artificial intelligence, computer graphics and games, and many more. So usually NUS students will apply for specializations in year 3, but before that you have to take up some prerequisite modules. So while clearing your foundation modules, you probably need to do some planning before you actually take up these specializations.
So this next portion, we will go through some modules and we will highlight to you some of the key takeaways that we had. We will focus more on the basic modules to introduce to you guys computer science, just to let you guys have a rough understanding of what it will be like during your first 2 years in the computer science program. The first few modules that you will take as a computer science student is CS1101S. This module is actually just a basic module where they will introduce to you guys the basic fundamentals of coding, and yeah, you'll be introduced to this whole new environment.
So this module is actually built on top of JavaScript, so you'll get a basic understanding of what JavaScript is. So this module is super important because it's your first ever coding module, and it will give you a basic foundation of what coding is in computer science. So every week you'll probably just be given 1 or 2 labs along with 1 or 2 homework assignments as well.
This set of homework actually focused a lot on the fundamentals of coding and how to think about coding, and I remember at the start it was very difficult for myself because it took a few hours for me to complete one set of questions, but for some people who already knew coding, it really took them maybe just 30 minutes. So the level of difficulty will really vary to a person based on their background in coding.
So the next module we're talking about is CS1231S, which is discrete structures. So this module is the one that everyone hates, right? Because there's a lot of logic involved and it's not very intuitive. So maybe I can go in depth. Okay, so logic itself, there's a lot of ways to prove an equation. It's not like your simple mathematical induction in A levels. So you go one layer deeper into it and try to understand how it actually works. Yeah, basically the concept of proving. So the next module is MA1521. It's linear algebra. It's actually just basic algebra that you're probably touched on in your A levels and even your O levels. So it's actually pretty simple, but sometimes there'll be some twists and turns, and this module is actually heavily bell curve. It'll be very hard for any individual to actually score an A unless you're like really smart and you can score everything with a perfect score.
So for ST2334, it's a stats module. What I remembered from this was that when I was studying this module, a lot of the stats were from the A-level subjects, and I referred a lot to my A-level notes. So if you're a JC student, be sure not to throw away your stats notes. You might find them useful. Actually, this module was not easy at all and it was quite difficult. Yeah, but we had a lot of help from our TAs and from our friends, and we also studied a lot together, so we helped each other along the way.
So the next 2 modules that we're talking about is CS2030, Programming Methodology 2, and CS 2040, data structures and algorithms. So for CS 2030, it's actually a follow-up from CS 1101. So you'll be using Java to touch on the theories and the principles of basic computer science. And these theories can actually be applied to all of your languages, so it's super important.
Building on what he said, 2030 will focus a lot on just the basic classes and understanding of how you should structure your code and how you should solve problems using them. It will focus a lot on object-oriented programming and teach you the fundamentals of this entire way of programming.
So after you take CS 2030, it will lead you to CS 2040, which is your data structures and algorithms. So basically, it teaches you all the different data structures that there is in computer science in general.
In correlation to 2030, data structures are more of like the way that you can structure your problem-solving methods within your code. And this is actually very important because you will find this very useful when you are applying for jobs in the future. Basically, during your job interview for your work, you will be tested a lot on your programming knowledge, and how they will usually test you is through giving you a set of problems and watching how you solve them. And how you usually solve them is actually by using this kind of data structure that you are being taught, and CS 2040 focus on teaching you this kind of problem solving methods.
So apart from solving the questions itself, sometimes your interviewers will even ask you to optimize your code, so it can be in a form of speed and even time. So these are terms that you need to be clear of and know what exactly they entail.
So the next module is CS 2106, and what this module does is it introduces you to the operating system. For example, when you're pressing onto your keyboard, how does your computer know that what keys you are pressing and how will it respond? For example, if you're pressing the space bar, then on screen you will see a literal space. This whole entire process that's happening behind the scenes, in this module they'll explain it to you. And for me, this module is actually quite difficult because number one, I wasn't very certain in coding in C, and secondly, this is also a very abstract concept because everything is literally happening behind the scenes and there are huge number of things that are overlaid and running at the same time. So it was difficult for me to understand, and I wouldn't say that this module is easy at all.
So the next module is CS 2103, which is software engineering, and this module basically teaches you how to work in teams. So there will be a project where you guys will be doing together, probably a group of 4 or 5. You'll probably need to create this project that's built on top of another project that is given to you by the professors. You can either make some improvements on them or even build something just from scratch. So in this module, you'll learn a lot of frameworks, one of which is Sprint. What a sprint is basically a set of multiple milestones. From one milestone to another, you'll probably need to hit like a certain set of features to build. As you build more features, you'll hit a milestone, and by the end of each milestone, you probably have a set of features that has already been built, and at the end of it, it will all come together as a fully built application.
So this last portion, we will give you some tips and tricks on how to survive NUS Computer Science and some of the things that we wish that we did when we were back in, way before we entered NUS. Yeah, let's start.
So the first point is difficulty. Computer science in NUS is really, really difficult. How I see it is, you can categorize it in 2 basic categories. So for a hard module, it's actually very difficult to score because it's already a hard module and it won't be bell curve. So it will actually be very hard for you to even pass the module. But for the easy modules, it will actually be bell curve very strongly. An example is your MA1521, right? So even if you score a pretty high score, you will still be bell curved and your grade might even be pushed down to an A- or even a B+.
So the conclusion for this is, firstly, if you scored badly for the test, you might still score well for the entire module, so don't worry. And secondly, if you're finding it difficult, don't be discouraged because everyone is actually on the same level as you are. Everyone is finding it difficult, so yeah, everyone just struggles together. Also, one of the most common questions is which programming language should I focus on?
So if you want to get a basic understanding of how computer science works, how coding works, specifically, it will be Python. Python is a very lightweight programming language. With just a few simple phrases, you can actually create quite a number of stuff already. You can actually take up courses online or even learn from YouTube channels. Yeah, so that will be quite a good way to start.
Before we both went to NUS, we actually took up this course. What's this course called again?
It's called Hackwagon.
We both took part in Hackwagon and it was actually heavily subsidized by IMDA.
It was about $2,000. So what this course basically teaches you is basic Python programming along with some data visualization.
I'm not sure if there's still Hackwagon right now, but I'm pretty sure there are still some other courses out there that teaches you programming, and you are heavily subsidized if you are either just ORD'd or you are a university student. So you can go and look out for these kind of courses.
Yeah, so apart from taking online courses, if you want to look into YouTube, there's actually a lot of information that you can learn from YouTube. So this leads me to my next point, which is Orbital. Orbital is basically a module in NUS where you can get 4 MCs during your summer vacation, where you can actually work with another partner for you to create a product of your own. So for us, we actually created this product called Wiggle. Basically, it's an idea that we thought of during school.
Okay, so basically we were both staying in Carriage Hall, and then we just thought about how there were a lot of clusters within the hall, but between these clusters, we don't really make friends outside of these clusters. So we just thought that if we have a mobile application that allow people to randomly meet new people every day, from people from other clusters or people from other halls, then that would be really cool, and we could, really have a lot of networking sessions. So yeah, we just built the app, and there's actually the video. I think I'll play it somewhere. But yeah, that's the application that we built, and this project actually opened our eyes, I think, because firstly we thrown ourselves into this unknown area where we really don't know how to build a mobile application, and we just researched everything entirely. And I wouldn't say that Orbital really had a lot of guidance for us. We had a mentor, but we didn't really ask too many questions. Most of the work came from both of us, and we just did our own research. Just through Google and YouTube, we built a mobile application. If you're computer science students, I would really highly recommend you to take up this Orbital, and it happens every summer.
Yeah, every summer.
Yeah, every summer.
Yeah, so don't just restrict yourself to school modules, because if you take up courses on the side, you can actually learn multiple things.
On another note, when you're year 1 and year 2, there's a selective few modules in year 1, year 2 that you're allowed to SU. So what SU means is that you can not count the grade of these modules into your cap. This way you kind of like get to save your cap and slowly ease your way in. What we usually say is like year 1, year 2, you can just play around because you can SU the modules, which is kind of like what I did, but because of that, my cap later on fell a lot because it was just more volatile. But if you don't SU, then your cap becomes more stable because of the way that they calculate the cap. Yeah, so he advocates for that you try your best not to.
Yeah, try your best not to SU because it will make your cap more stable. So in the future, if you want to play, you can just play.
Yeah, so usually year 1, year 2 modules are simpler and so-called easier to score. And if you can just score on them, and try not to SU them. Yeah. So that's our next tip.
So when doing your modules, you'll find that you have a lot of difficulty doing some of the questions and assignments. So actually on Telegram, there's a chat group which has all the computer science students from all the different batches. There'll be people actually asking questions and posting some answers. So it'd be very good if you guys could just ping each other on the chat, and actually don't be afraid of asking questions there. So because people are actually really helpful here.
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to your TAs or your professors if you need help. A lot of us actually, also on that note, we joined a lot of small communities. Within our own hall, Cambridge Hall, we had our own computer science community. We will usually help each other out. I know a lot of people within the computer science community, they usually don't solve problems on their own, and they work together in groups. So yeah, be sure to find your group of friends and work together because it's not an easy journey. On that note, right, one thing that I regret not doing was joining the computing camp, because I feel like I could have made a lot more friends within the school. I think during that period, I was deciding which camps to go. So I went to the sports camp instead. Is this sports camp?
I don't know you.
Yeah, so before university starts, there are actually multiple camps that introduces you to the school, and some of these camps overlaps in terms of timing. So I would highly recommend that you prioritize the camp, your school camp. This way you can get to know more people within your faculty and within your own class.
Okay, so the next step for this is, after you get into computer science in NUS, you'll probably need to plan your route in your whole NUS journey, because number one is your specializations. You need to take up prerequisites for you to actually take up the specializations in your year 3. Then next is your overseas exchanges. So for us, we are taking this program called the NOC, which is NUS Overseas College. So what this program entails is basically we are allowed to work and study at the same time. And the special thing is that we are only working in startups. And we are allowed to work overseas. So currently we are actually working in Silicon Valley, which is one of the big tech startups.
One of the prerequisites for this program was that you either have interest in startups or you have worked in a startup before. In order for us to come to this overseas program together, we actually had to plan way back in year 1. So what we did in our year 1 and year 2 years was that we took up internships, specifically in startups, and we made sure to plan enough time to take up these internships to build our own portfolio before coming onto the NOC. So yeah, if you want to come to programs like NOC, be sure to look out for them and plan for them. So on that note about planning your entire route, right? So one of our friends, actually before entering the NUS Computer Science, he actually enrolled in this course called the CS1010X, which occurred before the school term. and he enrolled in that to understand a little bit more about coding and programming, and this gave him a huge head start before he entered the computer science course. However, he did need to pay like $960 for this course within NUS, and he had to apply it very early. I'm not sure if it's still available now, but that's just something for you to take note, especially for the guys out there who are still in army. Yeah, you can take up this course as well. And on the last note is plan your internships, because for tech roles, internships usually last longer than 3 months. It can be difficult for you to find time to apply for these roles and to cater time for your internships because of how busy school term is, and it would have been a lot easier for us if we actually plan this internship before we even enroll in the course.
Yeah, so the last and final tip would be to think of alternatives other than just working for big tech companies. So it would be quite glamorous if you are working for Apple, Google, Facebook, right, all the big tech FAANG companies. But it would be also pretty interesting if you work in startups as well. One of the common stereotypes is that you take up multiple hats and that the pay is pretty low. Actually, that's not very true, because the startups will usually have lots of investors hunting for them, and if they have investments in their company, they can actually earn just as much or even more than a big tech company as well. So a final tip I'll leave with you guys would be that you should never stop trying, because along the way you definitely meet bumps and cracks along the way, and you will definitely fail. But it's alright, you just have to accept it and pick yourself up and just keep trying.
Yeah, and my final tip would be to work in teams, because I honestly wouldn't have made it without my friends, and I rely a lot on them for help throughout the entire years. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions for us, do leave them in the comment section below. We would really love to make another video for you guys. Yeah, thank you guys so much, and we hope that you have fun in NUS Computer Science.
Bye.
Bye.